subscribe button to subscribe to our channel. Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Hello everyone, in this video I am going to give some important tips for writing a better answer in mains, and also I will mention you some important points to remember when you are in the examination hall. And the first thing you have to remember is like allot at least 5 minutes to read the whole question paper quickly. Okay, why you have to read the whole question paper quickly? Because you can mark the questions which you are really comfortable with and you can start with those questions. Okay, and you can answer in a comfortable way. And also you should remember the most important thing is like after reading the question, please guys just don't jump into the answer directly. Then what you have to do without jumping into the answer, without writing the answer, what you have to do, you have to make a rough work. Okay, rough work containing what? Rough work containing outline. And what is this outline? This outline is nothing but uh, the key points, what are the key points you are going to write in the introduction part, and what are you going to write in the conclusion part. So those things just make a outline. Okay, just make a some rougher kind of thing. Why you have to do the outline? Because see, after reading the question, if you directly jump into the answer, then what you will do, you will go on writing whatever you knew about that particular statement or about that particular question, and then you will end up writing so many points. And as word limit plays a crucial factor in UPSC, you will not have any more space to write the important points at the end of the answer, and you will end up with a lengthy answer without covering any important points. So to avoid this situation, what you have to do, just make a outline of key points. And also this outline should consist of like things what you're going to write in the introduction part, what you're going to write in the context part, and so. Okay, and now coming to the other important thing is like if possible just try to follow the basic anatomy of an answer. So now when I'm saying the basic anatomy of answer, what I mean nothing but structure of the answer. And guys, I'm not saying like follow the particular structure of answer itself, because everyone will have their own answer writing style, and even you can follow your own answer writing style. I'm just giving you an example. Okay, and the basic anatomy of an answer should consist at least introduction part. Okay, just try to write the introduction part. And what you have to write in this introduction part, this introduction part should at least consist of some background if necessary. If the question is demanding, then try to write a few background about that particular question. And also after writing the introduction part, when you are moving to the body of the answer, what is the body of the answer? It should contain the main context of the question. Okay, you should address the question in the body of the answer. So in the body of the answer, just try to write in a paragraph way or in bullet points or anything whichever you are comfortable with. Okay guys, and now coming to the conclusion part. And never ever skip the conclusion part. At least try to write some way forward kind of thing, or at least mention your opinions or any kind of thing. And when I'm saying opinions, I am not meaning like you have to give your personal opinions. Okay, just try to give some opinions which are based on evidences or arguments, okay, not your personal opinions, okay. So this is the structure, okay guys. And again the other important thing is like, if necessary, just use the flow charts or diagrams. Now again, why to use this flow charts and diagrams? See, in the examination you may not have such plenty of time, right? So in such situation, what you can do, you can explain through pictorial representations. I mean, like, you can explain the information through some diagrammatic way. So because of this, really you will fetch some good marks, okay, and you will, examiner will have some good impression on your answer, okay. So if possible, use some flow charts and diagrams, okay guys. And again, the most common mistake done by most of the UPSC aspirants is like, they go on using some flowery or ornamental language kind of thing. And please guys, just do remember, simplicity wins the heart. Just be precise and be effective. And also do remember, when you are answering the question, it means like you are just answering it. Don't dump the facts, or don't exhibit any superfluous knowledge or anything, okay. If you want really to mention any kind of facts, like for example any statistic data or any kind of thing, just mention it in the proper way, okay. And then don't go on dumping all the facts, okay. So just try to be simple and in a effective way. Your answer should be in a simple and effective way, okay. So now we have discussed some tips to write the better answer, right? So now I'm saying the better answer. How can you say whether your answer is really better or not? So there are some factors which really decide the outcome of your answer. Now let's discuss about those factors which are really playing an important role when coming to the answer. Okay, what are those? The first most important thing is nothing but understanding the question carefully and completely, okay. Understand equation completely. Now when I'm saying this, you may think like, okay, everyone will understand the question, then only they'll go to the answer. But when I'm saying understand the question completely, you have to focus on each and every word of the question. For example, like, to understand a question fully, one must know that a question has keywords. What are those keywords? Keywords are like maybe some directives which are frequently used in UPSC exams, like examine, comment, analyze, evaluate, and such kind of things. And what is the next important factor which decide the outcome of our answer? That is nothing but sticking to the word limit. Okay, so when I'm saying sticking to word limit, it simply means like, you have to cover the most important things, and you have to answer what the question is exactly demanding, and try to avoid the manner in which you go on writing whatever you knew about the answer, okay. So just stick to the word limit. And I already mentioned, like, to understand a question fully, one must really know the keywords, right? So now we will discuss about those keywords and directives. So for this, what I'm going to do, I'm just not going to say the definitions, or what are the things you have to keep in mind while addressing the directives, but I'm taking the example. I'm just pick up in the example of previous year question, and with this example I will explain you all the directives and uh, how to write for that particular question, okay. See over here, the uprising of 1857 constitutes an important watershed in the evolution of British policies towards colonial India. So this is a question of 2016 UPSC mains, guys. So here, for example, just suppose there are some directives like examine, critically examine, comment, evaluate, analyze, narrate, assess, exemplify, discuss, give an account of. So these are some of the keywords you have to keep in mind. And now you may think like, what is the importance of these particular directives, or what is the importance of these keywords when writing the answer in mains? Because for example, suppose they are asking us to write uh, they are just asking us to examine this particular statement, and you are going on narrating the statement, then it will be wrong. Okay, then you are writing something a wrong answer for a different question. Okay, so to write the proper answer for the question, you have to follow these directive words. Okay, for example, just have a look over here. Just have a look like narrate. If they're giving like this this statement to narrate, okay, then what you have to do, you have to write in a time related sequential order, right? Instead, if you go on explain how 1857 uprising was a important watershed in the evolution of British policies, then you are writing something a wrong answer which is not at all suitable for the question, right? So because of this you will not get a good marks. So to fetch some good marks, just keep in mind that these directives should be understood first. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I will explain all these directives one by one with the same example. So I'm just avoiding uh, taking different examples. Instead, I'm just explaining all this with a similar example. Okay, so see over here, first directive word, examine and critically examine. Okay, first coming to examine. So when you're asked to examine, you have to probe deeper into the topic. When I'm saying deeper, it's not such deeper, guys. You have to probe little deeper into the topic, and you have to get into the details and find out the causes or implications if there are any. Okay, so this is examine. So now let me explain you with the question. The uprising of 1857 constitutes an important watershed in the evolution of British policies towards colonial India. So what I said, you have to understand the question completely. So here you have to understand each and every word, right? So here have a look, like they are mentioning some word watershed. What do you mean by watershed? Watershed is nothing but a event or a period which becomes a turning point is nothing but watershed. Okay, so here the statement is saying like 1857 uprising became a turning point in the evolution of British policies towards colonial India, and now they're asking us to examine this statement. Okay, so what you have to do in this particular question, you have to first probe deeper into the topic, and you have to get details, like you have to get details about how 1857 uprising became important watershed in the evolution of British policies, and also you can mention some implications of 1857 revolt on British policies, like how changes of British policies were because of 1857 uprising. Okay, coming to the next directive, critically examine. So please do remember, when critically is used as suffix or prefix to a directive, then what you have to do, all you need to do is like look at good and bad of something. Okay, it simply means like you have to cover both pros and cons. Okay, like your answer should be in a balanced way, but just don't incline towards one side, guys. Just balance the answer. Okay, and after that you have to give a fair judgment. And when I'm saying fair judgment, what do you mean by fair judgment? Nothing but an unbiased judgment. Okay, so in critically examine, you have to probe deeper by looking at both pros and cons. Now we will have a look at this question. For example, just suppose they're asking us to critically examine this statement, then what you have to do, you have to write those changes which are having positive impacts and also changes which are having negative impacts. Means like positive changes in the British policies and negative changes, or changes of British policies which are having positive impact and negative impact. Okay, so just have a look, I will just summarize over here. Positive impact and negative impact. And under positive impact, what you can write, see, so when I'm saying positive impact, you have to cover those changes in the British policies which are really having some positive effect on Indians. Okay, so here you can write some changes which are like abolishing of East India Company rule. So as power was transferred to the hands of British Crown, East India Company rule was abolished. So this was one of the benefit to Indian, right? So you can write it over here. And also you can write some things like abolition of policy of annexation. So British want to maintain some good friendly relations with princely states, and for this they choose to abolish the policy of annexation. And also you can write like policy of political participation of Indians. So all these are things you can mention in the positive side, like in a pros side. And when coming to the negative side, what you can write like changes in the military administration. Like for example, before 1857 uprising, the higher posts in the army were sometimes at least given to Indians. But after 1857 uprising, no higher post in the army were given to Indians, and also more whites were recruited into the army. Like for example, the ratio of Indians and white sepoys is like 2:5. Okay, so there are really less number of Indian sepoys when compared to white sepoys. Okay, and also you can write the other negative change or negative impact of British policies, like neglect of higher education. Like prior the uprising of 1857, some British officials at least gave importance and respect to highly educated or highly intellectual Indians. But after this, there was some neglect of higher educations. Okay, so these things you can mention over here. And now we will move on to the other directives like comment and critically comment. See, when coming to comment, what you have to do, you have to pick main points first and then give your opinion on them based on the evidences and arguments stemming from your wide reading. Okay, to make it simple, you have to identify first and write about the main issue. See, for example, in this question, the uprising of 1857 and evolution of British policies. So, what is the main issue over here? The main issue is like the 1857 uprising have some impact on British policies. So, this is the main issue. So, what you have to do, you have to identify first, then you have to give your responses based upon what you have read or heard. Okay, and you can if possible you can avoid expressing a purely personal opinion over here. Okay, and we will move on to the other thing, critically comment. And before moving on to the critical comment, let me explain you this question with particular directive, that is comment. For example, if they're asking us this statement to comment, then what how your answer should be, your answer should be like, if you really agree with this statement, like if you're really agreeing that 1857 uprising led to changes in the British policy, then first mention about those British policies and also how 1857 led to the changes in the British policies. So this is the way how your answer should be. Okay, and now coming to critically comment. So basically critically comment is also nothing but forming opinion on the main points, but in the end you have to provide a fair judgment. Okay, in comment, like expressing your personal opinion can be avoided, but when coming to critically comment, at the end you have to provide a fair judgment, means you have to provide an unbiased judgment. Okay, so we will move to the other directives, analyze and critically analyze. So coming to first analyze is nothing but this is really broader than examine. Okay, so when coming to this analyze directive, what you have to do, you have to dig deeper when compared to examine, but you have to dig deeper into every aspect of the question. When I'm saying every aspect, what do you mean? Like you have to cover the question on every aspect. So the most important simple tip over here is like dismantle the question into parts. Okay, I mean like break the question into parts and explain them as a whole. Okay, so this should be your approach. Now let's see over here, analyze the uprising of 1857 constitutes an important watershed in the evolution of British policies towards colonial India. So here how can you break this question? You can break this question into component parts like uprising of 1857, and evolution of British policies. Okay, so you can break this into two compartment parts, and again what you have to do, you have to explain them as a whole. Okay, this should be your answer. Next, critically analyze. So critically analyze means what? After analyzing the nature of each component, okay, each component part, then what you have to do, you have to explain the interrelationship between them, and after that you need to conclude with a unbiased judgments, like means pros and cons. So let's for suppose they are asking critically analyze the uprising of 1857 constitutes an important watershed in the evolution of British policies towards colonial India. Then, what you have to do, simply you have to critically analyze this question, which involves separate examination of 1857 uprising and also separate examination of British policies. Okay, and later you have to explain the interrelationship between them. How you can explain the interrelationship between 1857 uprising and British policies? You can just simply say how the uprising of 1857 led to the important changes in the British policies towards colonial India. So in this way, you can just simply just mention the interrelationship between them, and later on you can conclude a unbiased judgment. Okay, so this should be your answer when asked with a directive word critically analyze. We'll move to the other directive words like evaluate and critically evaluate. So, for example, when you are asked to evaluate, you have to pass a sound judgment about the truth of the given statement in the question or topic based on the evidence. Okay, so what do I mean? For example, they are giving some statement asking you to evaluate. Then, if you are really if you are really believing in that statement, then you have to pass a sound judgment about the truth of that statement in the question. Okay, so see over here, they're giving this statement and asking us to evaluate. So what you have to do while answering this particular question, you have to answer based on the evidence, and then apprise whether 1857 uprising has really made an such a great impact on British policies, or whether really 1857 uprising became an important watershed in evolution of British policies, and then you can give your opinion. Okay, so this should be your answer. And when coming to critically evaluate, so what you have to do, you have to mark your judgment as to what extent a statement, or as to what extent or as to what extent the findings of the question are true. Okay, or to what extent you are agreeing with this particular statement in the question. And so here you have to cite some evidence or examples taken from different sources which you both agree with and also contradict. Okay, when coming to evaluate, you can just give some evidences if you are really believing that given statement. Okay, if you are really have the opinion on the given statement, then you can pass sound judgment about the truth of the given statement, right? But when coming to critically evaluate, what you have to do, you have to cite examples which you both agree with and also contradict. Okay, so this way you have to give both examples. Okay, so when you're asked with critical evaluate, keep these two things in mind. Okay, and we'll discuss other directive words like discuss, narrate, give an account, enumerate. When coming to discuss, you have to debate on paper by going through the details of issues concerned by examining each of them. Okay, let me make more simpler. Your answer should be in such a way like you're really discussing with the examiner on the paper. Okay, so it should be so interactive way. Okay, in that way just try to write the answer. When coming to narrate, early to late, this is how narration occurs. So when I'm saying early to late, just don't get confused guys, this is nothing but a time related sequence. For example, let me explain this question they're asking us to narrate. Then what you have to do, the simple thing is like you can just explain those British policies before 1857 and after 1857. For example, you can just see 1800s, to 1860. And now you can explain how British policies changed. Okay, so from early to late. So this is the narration. And when coming to give an account of, so here one has to give a detailed description of the topic asked. And when I'm saying account for, what you have to do, account for asks you not only what but also why that specific issue has happened. Okay, so again let me explain you with this particular question itself. See, for example, here they are asking us to give an account on this particular appraising statement. Then what you have to do, you have to explain about this statement, like appraising of 1857, and also you have to explain why the changes in the British policies occurred. So in this statement they are saying like 1857 uprising led to changes in the British policies, right? So you have to explain what are those changes and why those changes occurred. Okay, so why those changes occurred? Because British were really afraid of further revolts of Indians, so they just started consolidating the empire instead of the expansion. What do you mean by consolidating? Like British started strengthening the empire instead of the expansion. Okay, so because of this there were some changes in the British policies. So in this way you can explain why the changes happened and what are the changes happened. Okay, so this is nothing but give an account of. And coming to the other directive, enumerate. So when they're asking us to enumerate, simply list the points about the topics. And also if the question is demanding or if the question is of that kind, you can also represent the numbers in the question. Okay, when I'm saying numbers, don't give any wrong data, wrong statistic data. Okay, if you really have some good idea about the numbers, then only try to mention it, guys, or else just avoid it. That's the best thing you can do. Okay, and now coming to the other word, exemplify. So when the question is asking us to exemplify, what you have to do, you can give simply a typical example of that particular category. Okay, so now we have discussed these directives, right? And I think you already understood the importance of these directives. And please guys, just don't try to by heart the definitions of these directives, but keep on practicing the questions, like keep on practicing different questions of these different directives, so that whenever you see the question in the examination hall, you should really get strike in your mind, like okay, discuss means we have to really debate on the paper, or if they're asking us to give an account of you, then you have to state why that specific issue also happened. So it should really strike on your mind. So for this, keep on practicing is really a good weapon to answer writing in mains. Okay, so now we will discuss other important tips also to for writing the better answer. See, you can follow the multi-dimensional approach. So what do I mean by multi-dimensional approach? So before attempting the question, think about different dimensions using which you can approach the question. For example, the dimensions like social, cultural, economic, political. So these are different dimensions, I mean like perspectives. Okay, different perspectives. So by going through this multi-dimensional approach, you can really have some at least 1 or 2 to 3 marks extra. Okay, so you can really fetch some good marks. And try to follow this multi-dimensional approach if the question is really demanding, guys. Okay, and also the other important tip is like examples and statistics. Okay, it is really important to quote some relevant examples even if the question asked is general. It will really decorate your answer, which will add 1 or 2 marks again. Okay, so just try to mention some examples and statistics. And again I'm mentioning, if you really have some good idea about the statistics, then only just mention it, or else just avoid them. Okay, and the other most important tip and common tip is nothing but don't write answer in a stretch. Do not write at a stretch. Then what you have to do, just break it into paragraphs, or make some subheadings or just write your answer in a bullet points. Okay, so writing at a stretch will not really give you some good impression. This will not really give some good impression. Okay, it will seem something like a lengthy answer kept together. Okay, so to give some good impression, just break into paragraphs or write them in a bullet points. Okay, and also I already mentioned you can go through some you can give some relevant facts and data. And the other common tip is nothing but just try to avoid exchanging pens. Okay, like many people just go on using different colored pens. Just avoid that, because you not have that time. Then just don't try to switch on the pens. Okay, and also focus on the quality of the content rather than the quantity. Okay, focus on the quality. When I'm saying quality, what do you mean? Like you have to write the proper answer for the question. Okay, and also I already mentioned, if you really want to uh, use some colored pens or anything, there is no necessity for that. Instead you can highlight or underline the important quotes or important keywords of your answer. Okay, if you feel it's necessary, you can highlight them or underline them. And also guys, the most important mistakes done by many UPSC aspirants is like you go on giving some uh, personal views, like for example, I want to say according to me. Don't use them. Okay, don't input your personal opinions. Then what you have to do instead, use them in the indirect form. For example, like one should do this, or one may, or we should do. So use this kind of things in the indirect form. Don't input your personal views like I or according to me. So these kind of things are really should be avoided. Okay, and if you want to criticize some statement of the question, then your criticism must be in a constructive way or in a logical too. And if you want to give a personal opinion, do remember that your personal opinion should be widely accepted. Okay, and also try to avoid writing your answers or lines repeatedly. Just don't write same lines repeatedly again and again. Okay, and also if possible, try to answer from the perspective of the current affairs too. It will also fetch you some good marks. And now we will discuss about the question, like how to address the question. So to address the question or understand the question, first we have to know the components of the question, right? So now we will discuss what are the components of the question. And this is the most common type of questions, right? So let's see them. Subject matter or topic, aspect or focus, instruction or comment, okay, expansion and viewpoint. So these are the components of the frequently or common asked questions. So now let's discuss about these components individually. What do you mean by topic or subject matter? Nothing but the most general terms, like what is the question about? Okay, so what is the question about? And when coming to focus, what is this? This is nothing but the angle or the point of view on the topic, like what aspect of the topic is question about. Okay, so this is nothing but aspect or angle or point of view of question. Okay, and coming to the instruction or comment, what does this refers to? This refers uh, to the instruction word or phrase. These instructions tell us exactly what to do, I mean, or what to write. Okay, what to do. When coming to the other component, nothing but expansion or restrictions. This is about the limitations or relations on the subject. Okay, uh, or this is a detailed limitation of the topic. What in specific terms is the question about? Okay, so detailed limitation of the topic. And when coming to the other component nothing but viewpoint. What is this viewpoint? Viewpoint is nothing but refers to the requirement. Okay, requirement in the question. And like what is the requirement that a writer writes from? Okay, so you have to keep these components of the question in. So once you really understood with this subject matter and questions requirement, and once you understood like what the question is exactly demanding, the next step comes with the answer. So to understand this, what you have to do, just keep these things in mind. Okay, what has been asked? Okay, what has been asked in the question, and how to present the answer for that particular question. Okay, and what should be the structure? Means I already mentioned, to know this you have to make some rough work of outline, right, before getting into the answer. So what would be the structure? And also you have to remember how much detail your answer should be. You can't write every answer in a detailed way, right? It should vary, right? So for that you have to keep in mind like how much detail your answer should be, and how you're going to organize the content of your answer. So how to organize the content of answer. Okay, and also you have to keep in mind like what information not to mention. Now you may think like why to remember or why to think about what information not to mention. Okay, because while writing your answer you may write some unnecessary points also. So if you, before getting into the answer, if you keep in mind like what are those things which you should avoid, then it will be helpful when you are sticking to the word limit. Okay, and also just before getting into the answer, just think that is the diagram really necessary for that question. Okay, can you present the diagram or flowchart? So these are the things you have to keep in mind while writing the answer. And thank you guys, and keep on practicing. Okay.